Good morning, everyone. Today is July 7th, 2025, and I welcome you to my live podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the very odd, perhaps not unexpected, FBI findings on all things JE. So many of you know that on July 6, 2019, was the day that JE was arrested. And Well, lo and behold, the Monday after the 4th of July weekend, which is kind of significant. There are other things that are significant with the recent FBI release, which is kind of like I'm calling it the Warren Commission report on JE. And their denial that JE ran a blackmail operation, their their video finally. Oh, here's a video. Oh, where was your video? Well, here's a video showing that no one entered the place, the jail, and that clearly he unalived himself. And the list, oh, well, there's no such thing. This, despite the fact that we have all heard Pam Bondi talk about not only the list, but the tapes that she had seen showing CP. Okay. Well, I just want to, hi, Bertie, you're here early. So we're going to go over this information. So, as we all know, I don't think I have to remind you, JE and Donald Trump were friends for a very long time. And it was during Trump's first administration that JE was arrested. It was during Trump's administration that JE was found, oh, gee, he's not breathing. And then, all of the back and forth with he was disappeared out the back room of the jail, and that he's alive, he's not. It's kind of a distraction because it really doesn't matter, right? However, I find it very suspicious that this comes right after Virginia Giuffre is no longer with us, allegedly, by her own hand. I also find it odd that this happened after Sean, John, Puffy, Diddy, Combs is, oh, well, they threw out three of the most serious charges with only two very little ones, and whether or not he's going to really do much of any time, well, that's to be determined. So here we have Kash Patel, the FBI director, with Virginia Roberts Giuffre's biggest troll, Victoria Harvey, whom I have talked about here many times. So what I want to do is I just want to focus on this person, the man that we really can't even talk about him. We can't name him. I mean, so heads up, people. There are some words I can't say because of the algorithm. So I'm going to have to spell some words and or use other words. So for those of you who are new, please understand that it's not because I want to make life difficult for you, but because this is the way we have to speak now. We have to speak in code. All right. So if you're about to write something on and leave a message saying, well, you don't mean unalive, do you? You mean the word DEAD. We're not allowed to say that. Sorry. Okay. Well, the FBI memo. So as part, and this, I'm reading this straight from the actual FBI memo. Okay. As part of our commitment to transparency, the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation have conducted an exhaustive review of investigative holdings related to JE. To ensure that the review was thorough, the FBI conducted digital searches of its databases, hard drives, and network drives, as well as physical searches of squad areas, locked cabinets, desks, closets, and other areas where responsive material may have been stored. These searches uncovered a significant amount of material, including more than 300 gigabytes of data and physical evidence. The files relating to JE include a large volume of images of JE, images and videos of survivors, I'm going to call it, okay, who are either minors or appear to be minor, and over 10,000 downloaded videos and images of illegal CP. Teams of agents, analysts, attorneys, and privacy and civil liberties experts combed through the digital and documentary evidence with the aim of providing as much information as possible to the public while simultaneously protecting victims. Much of the material is subject to court-ordered sealing. Only a fraction of this material would have been aired publicly had JE gone to trial, as the seal served only to protect victims and did not expose any additional third parties to allegations of illegal wrongdoing. Through this review, we found no basis to revisit the disclosure of those materials and will not permit the release of CP. This systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. I'm going to pause here and ask those of you who have not subscribed to please subscribe to my channel. And those of you who are watching, go ahead, please do the like button, because we are heavily censored on this platform and I really need your help to sort of get my voice heard. I am a survivor of this network. I was a slave for 6 years. For 8 years. I have been reporting on this for 6 years. For those of you who are new to my channel, hence the reason I work day in and day out to bring forth the information that I find as an investigative journalist, as an author, as somebody who has been investigating this crime, which interlocks and interconnects with other crimes. Okay, so I am going to ask you to please like and subscribe and share. Okay, I'm going to continue reading this article. So it says, consistent with prior disclosures, this review confirmed that JE harmed over 1,000 victims. Each suffered unique trauma. Sensitive information related to these victims is intertwined throughout the materials. This includes specific details such as names and likenesses, physical descriptions, places of birth, associates, and employment history. One of our highest priorities in combating, let's say, not of age exploitation, I needed to change a word there, and bringing, quote, justice to victims. Okay, I mean, the whole thing is such a charade, but I'm going to continue to read. Perpetuating unfounded theories about JE serves neither of those ends. To that end, while we have labored to provide the public with maximum information regarding JE and ensured examination of any evidence in the government's possession, it is the determination of the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation that no further disclosure would be warranted or appropriate. Although after a thorough investigation, FBI investigators concluded that JE committed unalivement, that is the make-believe word that I have to use for the purposes of staying on this platform, at his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City on August 10, 2019. This conclusion is consistent with previous findings, including the August 19, 2019 autopsy findings of the New York City Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, the November 2019 position of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, in connection with the investigation of federal correctional officers responsible for guarding JE, and the June 2023 conclusions of the DOJ's Office of the Inspector General. The conclusion that JE unalived by self-harm is further supported by video footage from the common area of the Special Housing Unit, the SHU, it's like SHU, where JE was housed at the time of his unalivement. Sorry, I just have to keep doing that because of the algorithm, so please don't leave me a note or I'll just remove you from my channel. Thank you for understanding. As DOJ's Inspector General explained in 2023, anyone entering or attempting to enter the tier where J.E.'s cell was located from the shoe common area would have been captured by this footage. The FBI's independent review of this footage confirmed that from the time J.E. was locked in his cell at around 10:40 p.m. on August 3rd, 2019, until around 6:30 a.m. the next morning, nobody entered any of the tiers in the SHU, S-H-U, the unit where he was. During this review, the FBI enhanced the relevant footage by increasing its contrast, balancing the color, and improving its sharpness for greater clarity and viewability. All right, so I am going to take a look at you guys, and I'm going to see what you guys are saying. I'm just adding. I mean, that's an awful lot of blankets and sheets, and frankly, they're paper thin. They're actually made from paper. I know because I researched it at the time. Real linen is not allowed for prisoners in a jail, and so these many sheets that were found in J.E.'s cell. That's an actual photograph of the cell where he was found. It was made public to the whole world after he was, quote, found unresponsive. But they're made of paper. So, and, you know, he was 6 feet tall, I think. He weighed, 185. Well, whatever. So let's just see what you guys are saying here. I want to do this, Gina Dean. Thank you for reminding people to just give this a like because it does help with the algorithm. And then, hi, Gay. Wow, live at a decent hour. Yeah, well, I started late for me. Typically, I do like to do early. However, you know, I do have a life to live too. Let's see. Sihan, hey, thanks for being here, Sihan. I recognize you from another podcast I did. Glad I caught alive. Have been catching up with your videos. You uncover so many unknown links and show how this is a worldwide web on all levels, including spiritual. You are extremely resilient. Thanks. Well, thank you for being here and thank you for the kind words. Let's see what you guys are saying. Anybody have a question? If you have a question, please do me a favor and just put a Q in front of your question should you have one. Now, I personally find it very kind of like, you know, stick a pin in it kind of thing, you know, kind of like a thought. Well, suddenly Sean Puffy Combs was, you know, is going to be going home sooner rather than later. Just this past week, it was discovered, oh, well, gee, they dropped 3 of the most important charges that would have kept him in prison for the rest of his life, clearly, because he's in his 50s. But they're only holding him responsible for the lesser of the 2. And here he is in the courthouse in a very dramatic pose, praying. Typically, by the way, this kind of stuff would not be allowed in a courtroom. He also was communicating with his family. There was a lot of unusual activity going on. And I will be talking about this in this podcast as to what my perspective is on why that happened with Sean Combs. But also the fact that Virginia, all of this is happening concurrently. Virginia is found to be, oh, well, she's not responsive either. And by the way, her brother came out and said the other day, oh, well, he left the house early in the morning. He didn't come back until late at night. And then she was still, you know, he heard some ambient music coming from her room, but the door was locked. I want to remind people that Craig Spence of the Franklin child allegations was found at the Ritz-Carlton with a locked door. I want to remind people that Danny Casolero was found in Virginia at a hotel. I think it was the Sheraton. I could be wrong. Again, behind a locked door. I want to remind people that when my own intruder came into my home, my door was locked, but he came in through the window. I want to remind people that when Eli Black, Leon Black's father, found himself in 1975 flying out of the 44th floor window of the Pan Am building, uh, his office door was locked too. The intelligence agencies do not need a key to your door. If you remember, or if you can do just simple search for Watergate burglars, one of these so-called Watergate CIA agents who were caught at the Watergate hotel, it was also an apartment complex. He was like a top level lock picker. So you don't really need to have a door that is, quote, unlocked to think that something unusual happened. Let me see your question. Yes, my abuser is definitely connected to Leslie Wexner. In fact, they did business together and know each other since the 1947, because Meshullam Riklis was transferred after World War II to Ohio, deposited at Ohio State University, where he would meet Leslie Wexner. The two would be business partners. And he is a level above JE. So thank you for your question. And then, of course, Robert Maxwell was kept in the United Kingdom. So let's see. Thomas Hall, thank you for being here. It's all BS what happened to the cameras. I thought they were shut off. Now they're lying. Okay. Gay, Canada. I don't believe in coincidences. You know, that's very good, Gay, because I don't believe in coincidences either. I think that when you have a, quote, coincidence, that's kind of like should be a glaring red flag that something is 100% wrong. The fact that this suddenly, what are they going to say? So I look at it, and I think of this as the Warren Commission report. Now, if you guys are with me, put a 1 in the chat if you see this sort of like as our generation, let's say, anyone who's alive now, whatever your age is, our generation's Warren Commission report. And the Warren Commission, for those of you who perhaps have never heard of it, but you might have been, I'm sure everyone has heard about the Warren Commission report. After John F. Kennedy was unalived, sorry that I have to use that word, but I do, at Dealey Plaza on November, like just Thanksgiving time, another holiday time, kind of like another sacrificial kind of situation, right? In 1963. Well, they went and they compiled a report and they gave it to the public, and they basically said at that point, that is where the word conspiracy comes from, people. Anyone who did not believe in the Warren Commission report, claiming that, oh, it was one person, they got the person, and if you don't believe this, well, then you are a conspiracy theorist. So now for our time, they are telling us that, well, there was not only did he unalive himself, and the other thing they found that there's no such thing as let's say that he did not engage in a blackmail operation. Well, here's the thing. The problem with that is that Donald Trump is now the president of the United States. He's not stupid. He would very well know that historically, not just within the United States, but and continuing to present day, that the way governments operate is through blackmail. So that we have a very good example in J. Edgar Hoover, who Donald Trump, by the way, knew. I know that personally because my abuser is very close to Donald Trump, and I happen to know Trump myself. And Trump eventually bought the Plaza Hotel in New York City for a short time. It was sort of a way to hide some money for a little period of time. That is how it's done through real estate transactions. However, my point being that Trump also, his attorney was Roy Cohn, who, along with J. Edgar Hoover, who was a very long-term FBI director, he was caught with basically a blackmail operation happening from, I believe, room 233, suite 233 at the Plaza Hotel, which included Cardinal Spellman. It included Hoover wearing a little dress and being called Mary. It included Roy Cohn. And Donald Trump later bought the hotel for kind of personal reasons, but he would know very well that your government operates on using information, let's call it, instead of the word that starts with a B that might get this kind of deleted. So let's just call it information that deals in information. So being the fact that he is president right now, we can't say that he is not well advised. I think he's very well advised. Okay, so I am just, and the fact that, look at this. We have Kash Patel, who is the FBI director with Victoria Harvey. We know Victoria Harvey is one of the biggest trolls that Virginia had to deal with. She caused her so much harm. And there we have a very smiling and happy Kash Patel wearing a cap with the flag of the United States. And there we have one of the most unpleasant women that I've ever had the misfortune of meeting. She contacted me via DM trying to get me to be, quote, on her side so we could clear Prince Andrew. Sure. Victoria, you know, piece of work. However, let's go back to this image. I'm curious to hear what you guys. Tony, Hoover loved. You mean lived? I saw you made a little mistake. Okay, no problem. He lived with his mommy until he was 43. That's correct. However, his longtime partner was Clyde Tolson, who was the second in command for the FBI. If during his time, if somebody didn't keep him in the loop, he would send them a very clear message. He would say, hey, and he was very friendly. How is so-and-so? How is your wife? Oh, and by the way, I heard that you had a little indiscretion with this. And do you know that I have pictures? And he would do it in a way that was not threatening, but it was very clear that if the person, whether it was a senator or a congressman or a president, he did this to the Kennedys, you know, John Kennedy and his brother, who was also unalived later. He did it to everybody, and he was he was like the FBI director for the longest run. And then there is some speculation that he too, remember, he had a heart attack. I don't know if you know, but he was unalived unexpectedly of a heart attack. This happened at a really interesting time where there were going to be investigations about the illegal activities of the CIA and, of course, the FBI at the same time. And suddenly he's unalived. However, nothing has really changed, okay? And this, Christina Puente, they don't get extra clothes or sheets in prison, especially when they're on S-Watch. Here's the thing. He was removed from S-Watch, okay? He was removed from S-Watch. So gay, yes. Sihan, it looks very staged with all the sheets. Looks more like a crime scene where somebody wants to misdirect the investigation. I agree. When I first saw these images close to 6 years ago, I believed the same thing. let me go to Gay because this is a good question. Gay Canada, was Trump's ex-wife a part of JE's recruitment? Yes, according to Maria Farmer, who worked for JE in an administration. She was kind of in administration. She wasn't like, let's say, doing what Virginia Giuffre was doing. She was buying artwork for him. She was helping decorate some of the apartments at 66th Street, the other building provided to JE by Leslie Wexner. And by the way, my new book on Leslie Wexner, I hope I've left a link below, is available. My series on Substack, Deconstructing Wexner, has just blown up. There are a lot of my work blows up because I go into unexpected territory that nobody goes into. I named it Merchant of Death. It's available on my website, part 1. And yeah, no, I think that this is definitely staged. Whether or not this man is either alive or not, I don't think it's really pertinent because they're not going to change their story. Basically, I believe we are now going to be told not only, hey, there's nothing to see here, move on, which was really what that day in August was supposed to be about. He's no longer alive, and therefore there's nothing to see here. This is what they tried. But what they did not anticipate was the robust and the work and the interest that you guys have put into this. So bravo for all of you who have kept this story alive, because this story is a portal. I said it from day one. It is a portal into many of the crimes and many of the conspiracies that many people have no idea about. So, for example, my preview of how Rosemary's Baby was made and created by the Department of Defense, with the writer being Ira Levin and the producer of the movie, starring Mia Farrow, by the way, made by Roman Polanski. That's gone viral. I think I've gotten about 35,000 watches on that. And for a channel of my size, to get 35,000 watches, it went viral. That is the most viral video on my platform. And again, I'm a small channel because I am watched. They don't let me grow very big. That's why I need you guys to like, share, and subscribe. Okay, so let me get back to Robert Tideman's comment. Harvey is very disliked in the UK, believe me. Well, deservedly so, Robert. Deservedly so. She is just a despicable human being. Initially, when Virginia put on her thing on her Instagram that she only had 4 days to live, this Victoria Harvey, whose father, by the way, went to jail for being a thief, and whose brother was such a substance abuser that he unalived himself, and who doesn't have any money. I mean, I can go on and on with all the things that are wrong with this Victoria Harvey, but I've got several podcasts here that you guys can look through and listen to my thoughts and what I dug up on her past. But I'm happy to hear that she is unliked. And let's see. I'm looking through. Peace, Jen. Hi. Thanks for showing up. And I love that you write. Much love, Kirby. And Liz, prayers for my safety. Here's the thing. I don't do this for my safety. I do this to keep all of us informed, because I lived unaware for many, many years of what was happening to me. I thought I was the only person that was being 3 attempts on my life, held hostage. I couldn't get help anywhere. But I then realized, oh, wait a minute, there are other people in my shoes. And then I that awareness has been expanded upon, by the way. And I realize that the tentacles of this monster that we are looking at through the portal that is JE, which they want to shut down, because we have hit a nerve. We have done this. Together, we have done this. Together, we have done this, because without you being interested and without us being able to talk about this, that's why I just decided, let's do a live. Let me get with my people. Let me find out what's going on with you. Hey, Chris, always fascinating that it is. And hello, we're beginning to discover Hollywood is a psyop. Our government, our so-called elected officials are only, let's say, they're just figureheads. They're puppets. Somebody else writes the script. And by the way, if you think for a moment that Donald Trump writes his own script without having to respond and answer to a bigger person, in fact, the same, I use the word person, but it should be another layer of power above Trump. It's the same layer of power that is above Sean Combs. Do any of you understand what I just said? Do any of you understand what I just said? That the same layer of power that is above Donald Trump, who is the president of the United States of America, is the very same layer of string pullers, let's call them for the moment, that is above Sean Combs. And the same person, by the way, I know that a lot of people are going to find it difficult to understand that there is a higher level. And by the way, before I get into this higher level, which I will do for this podcast, it has gone unseen. It did not begin after the war, as some podcasters and people who write books, I just noticed the other day, oh, well, I questioned somebody's authenticity, because we have to know that just as Gloria Steinem was introduced to the world during the 1960s as, quote, a feminist, and basically became the face of the feminist movement and was, in fact, sponsored and paid for and a puppet of the CIA, we also have, quote, these puppets of intelligence apparatus in our country and in other countries, collaboratively, independently, whatever. But the intelligence apparatus, they didn't just infiltrate these great movements like the Black Panther Party, like Martin Luther King. And by the way, Martin Luther King's attorney is a white guy that was the attorney for my abuser's father. And somehow he went in there, and he has a very large firm. He's no longer alive, but the very large firm does a lot of business still with the United States of America. And there are these layers above these people, which is why, by the way, Sean Diddy Puffy Combs is allowed now. They control the judges, they control the politicians, they control all areas of business, the clothing industry, the banking industry, all of the industries that we think are separate, Hollywood, music, they control it all. It did not begin post World War II. It has been in existence for like hundreds of years. I don't even know how long, but hundreds of years. It is I'm going to have to spell it, and I apologize, but I have to spell it. It is an LUCIFERIAN operation. That is why, by the way, whether you live in Australia, in the United Kingdom, in Africa, in Brazil, in Canada, anywhere in the world, we hear similar stories of, let's say, a parent doing something inappropriate with a child. We hear these things over and over again. Children being exploited at a very young age by their parent or a family member. No matter where we are, anywhere in the world, the same thing happens over and over again. That is because we are born into this. We are born into this. And it takes a great deal of work on our part to extract ourselves from what we are taught in their schools, because whether you pay for a very expensive school or you go to the public schools where I went, most of what I know is literally from recreating. I wrote my memoir, and I urge those of you who are survivors to write. Some of you tell me, well, you don't like to write. Well, I'm sorry. That will help you heal. When I began to write my memoir, that is when I began to heal, and I began to understand what happened to me and discern. And then when J.E. was arrested, I jumped into this full on. I stopped everything I was doing. I had another business before this. I was a real estate consultant. I just stopped. And I knew that the answers I was looking for, I would find them here. What I didn't count on was that I would just hit a paid, like let's say if you're going on the gold rush and you've made the trek and you're there and you hit gold, you're like, oh my God, or you're looking for an oil well and you hit that's what happened to me. I have found so many submerged secrets that nobody else has found. And the reason I was able to do that is because I sat down to write my memoir, and it triggered my memory of being a slave with one of these people. And I remember my having to go to Washington, D.C., and my having to go to San Francisco, and having to go to Los Angeles, and having to go to different places, and being sent to Rome, and just all of these things, and the things that I heard him say, and the things that our conversation, somehow it just came flooding back, everything. And then, so therefore, that puts me in a position where I look at this and I'm like, okay, I can see where these pieces fit into each other. I can see where these pieces fit into each other. And my goal is to help you see that, to help all of you see how these pieces fit together, so that we can collectively keep ourselves safe, bring ourselves back from whatever darkness, because we shouldn't be living in darkness. We shouldn't be living in fear. No, we are, all of us, whether you have been, and you know what, and I'm going to just say that all of us have experienced trauma on one level or the other, okay? We all have. However, we all have the power to pull ourselves back. Clearly, some of us have, I have family and friends who have health issues that are difficult to overcome. So there's certain things that we really don't have any control over. But if it's just a matter of keeping your mood optimistic, you have control over that. I have control over that. And I urge all of you to keep your mood optimistic, learn as much as you can, spread awareness that you alone are in charge for what happens to you. We are not to be slaves, which is really the way they have been treating us and the way they treat us. I mean, any of you that go to the supermarket today will see that the prices that we had even just 3 years ago, in my case, I go to the supermarket and the price is doubled for much of the stuff. They're making it so that not only have they grown food that is not healthy, so stay away really from processed food and try to stay within a healthy realm of what you're supposed to eat. But the food is so expensive, whether it's processed or not, it's ridiculously expensive. They want to starve us. They want to starve us because the agenda is still eugenics. They don't want us to exist. However, let me get back to Sean Puffy Combs. He is a member of the Black Boule. The Black Boule is sort of like the black version of the, I'm going to have to spell it, Illuminati. Maybe I spelled it correctly, maybe I didn't, but most of you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. Because he is a high level member, just like, I want to be very clear, just like Donald Trump is a high level member. And by the way, I'm not, I don't believe in either the red party or the blue party. For those of you who are new to me, I became very disenchanted at the tender age of 17. I was like, you know what? I see what this is about. And then later when I was transportation, sorry, that's not a word, but that's what happened to me. And then later still, when I became a slave to one of these members of the elite, I realized, oh, I get it. It's a psyop. Those of you who want to believe, do your thing. But I'm talking to the majority of people who are waking up every minute of every day is an opportunity to broaden your horizon, to broaden your understanding. Because what happened with this report, oh, there is no Epstein list. And by the way, he unalived himself. And by the way, there was no blackmail. So soon we are going to hear, oh, well, you know what? He never existed. And mark my words, all of the articles written about JE have been systematically scrubbed from the internet. And they will continue to be scrubbed from the internet. And all of this that you and I are spending much of our time talking about, thinking about, studying, trying to explain to other people, this is going to be scrubbed from the internet. So take your screenshots, keep them somewhere safe. And I don't mean the cloud, people. I don't mean the cloud. And I can't even believe some people use Grok or AI tools, because I have been very clear that when Ghislaine Maxwell's sisters, Isabel and the other one whose name escapes me for the moment, created the first search engine, Magellan, what they did was to help conceal the crimes of Jimmy, and I have to spell his last name, Savile. Those of you who are on my Substack have seen my screenshots and how I show proof. Anything I share with you, I show receipts. I show receipts. Okay, I'm going to take a look at some of your stuff here. Peace, Jen. Yeah, food is very doctored. So, we have to stay away from being depressed. It's not going to help us, right? What I do, if I'm having a bad day, I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I'll have a bad hour. And then I have to snap out of it. And I have to do that for myself. And now I want to address this. Sybil 71. Howard University is a base of these individuals. Thanks, Kirby. So Sybil, here's the thing. All the universities, including Howard, but Howard specifically, I would say when it comes to the Boule, of which Sean Puffy Combs is a member, and I believe Howard is also where Bill Cosby went to school. Yes, I agree. However, all of our universities are, I'm going to just use the word controlled for the time being. Okay, that's what I'm going to use. And then let's just see. So Tony Gunk, thanks for showing up for the live. I can't find the pic of JE being wheeled out on the gurney anywhere, and I always regret not screen capping it. There you go. I mean, there it is. I mean, so if you can't find the photo of that, and by the way, I'm going to be writing an article about that and the photographers that were allowed on the scene and some unusual information that, again, nobody has shared. Nobody has shared. It'll be on my Substack. But yeah, I mean, they're taking everything away. They are just scrubbing the internet clean. And so let's see what. So Bill Clinton was an Oxford graduate. Well, okay. Not only was he an Oxford grad, Clinton was already working for the intelligence apparatus when he went to school. Once he went to college, he then was sent on a mission to, I believe it was Africa at the time. And by the way, he and Hillary were united in much the same way as J.E. and Ghislaine Maxwell. And I hope that you guys are following what I'm trying to say is that not everything you see is reality. And by the way, I just want to finish my thought, which I began a little bit ago, that some of the indie media that people glob onto thinking, well, they're indie, they're not part of mainstream, so they must be on our side. No, they are controlled opposition too. You have to be very careful. I put up a free article on my website for you to study from 50 years ago, Gloria Steinem, and the pattern for you to understand the patterns, because once you understand the patterns that, by the way, were used 50 years ago, you can then see how so-called indie media personalities, I'm going to call them for lack of a better word, are not, or people who have written a book on a certain subject are not on our side. But you have to be able to look at the patterns, because the patterns are always the same. You will get some information that is accurate. However, there will be some information that is missing, and or there will be disinformation. You have to learn to spot the signs, the patterns. Do not give your trust to every person who tells you they are an expert. Use your judgment. Do not just blindly follow anyone. Okay, you have to be very, very careful. So here, Sarah Beth, I have the photos and the autopsy. Smart girl, smart girl. Hey, Chris, Central. I always love when I see your little tweet there. And thank you for doing that all the time. I always look for it. And I'm like, okay, thanks for your brilliance. Well, thank you for showing up. Let's see. What else are you guys? Right. Thank you for that. So Maxwell sisters are Isabel and Christine. Yes, twins born 1950. Now, by the way, Isabel Maxwell was one of the first people to purchase my book from my website, Ghislaine Maxwell, an unauthorized biography. She has also been someone who is very concerned about what is written about her father. When the book Robert Maxwell, Israel Super Spy, was published, she got her hands on a copy that was yet to be published. She took it to Israel. She sat down with the then prime minister trying to get the book to be never to be published. And of course that she did not succeed. And but she, I understand, is a very big deal in Israel. One of her friends started talking to me at the very beginning, in the early days in 2019. There was all kinds of people trying to get my ear, and but I did hear from one of Isabel's very close friends that when she walks into a room with high-level Israeli officials. They all stand up in her honor. And her work, uh, I have said, not only helped Jimmy Will Fix It, and I'm the only person that's reported on that. And again, it's on my Substack for those of you who are members. And I'm sorry that I'm not wealthy. I'm sorry. What they do to survivors is they keep you poor. And my work is, I can do it because I have had the help of people who have followed my work for years, people who have become subscribers to my Substack, or who help me on my Patreon, or who have purchased one or more of my books, or who make a contribution, or who offer me a super thanks on this platform. You are the reason that I am here. I am not wealthy. What they do to survivors is they do anything in their power, and they have reach to make sure that you do not become independently self-sufficient, even to the point that you're just a normal person, because they want you to keep quiet. They do not want, if they can't discredit you, which has been tried with me and failed, if they cannot kill you, which has been tried with me and failed, then they're going to make sure that you don't make any money, which they have tried. And without your help, which you have been so generous to provide, most of you that are listening to me here, help me on one or more of my platforms. And it helps even to just like, share, and subscribe. That helps a lot too. If it weren't for you guys, I would not be here sharing with you what I know. So let's see what else I see here. Here, I would have to disagree with you, Tony. So I believe that a lot of pundits probably did start out independent and report it thoroughly and truthfully. I would disagree with you. I think that there are people inserted amongst us to do their bidding, because it is a very dirty system that I am hoping to God. And frankly, I don't even believe in God. I'm so jaded that I believe that we have a spiritual force. I believe in the spiritual force that we have, but I don't believe in either the red party, the blue party, and I don't believe in God. Not in the way, not in the church way. Okay, I believe we have a spiritual sense of what's right and wrong, but it's inside of us. We have to listen to our gut. But this, as far as some started out independently and started out on the right foot, I believe that not to necessarily be the case. I believe that a lot of them were already in place here. I'm going to see if anybody here has any questions. And if you don't, I'm going to ask you this. Yeah, I'm going to start to wrap it up. So if you have a question, please, put a Q so that I can see it and that I could just answer that before I wrap this up. Matrix Free, just jumping on. When I caught the headline, I thought, wait until Kirby sees this. Well, yeah, the headline, when I saw it today, I couldn't believe it. I just was like, whoa. But you know what? It's not surprising that they would suddenly Warren Commission us. I think I'm going to use that phrase. I like the phrase. They're throwing us this, oh, it didn't happen. Nobody was blackmailed. He unalived himself. Nothing to see. Go home. Guess what? We're not going home. We're not going home. If anything, I think we are going to double down. Okay. So with that, I'm going to thank all of you who showed up today for the last minute live stream, although it was at a more reasonable time. I agree. And for those of you who are joining me on the replay, please give this a like, subscribe, share. And I do look forward to everyone's commentary on the fact that Donald Trump's White House has decided nothing to see here, folks. Okay, guys, Have a really good day. Bye.